a sense of community when you're free. Rolling through the mountains, rolling through the valley, rolling through paradise with me.
Hello, everyone. Well, with me today is my friend Peter Lang. He's been on the show before. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
For sure. Now, there's a few things you want to talk about, right? Which I find fascinating. The first one, especially, that it's about dressing up as a white passing Middle Eastern character.
Yeah. A bunch of people, this was back in October, right?
Yeah.
And a bunch of people, I know they said, oh, he was dressed as Jesus. And I was like, Jesus was a brown person. I know that they represent him as white in many places, but the fact is, as we know historically, that based on what's in the Bible, Jesus was a brown person. So I'm not brown. I didn't try to be brown either, but I did try and pass myself off as a white passing Middle Eastern man. And I said, yeah, maybe I'm related to Jesus, but because we're both non-violent community activists, and that's what Jesus was. So yeah, I jokingly call myself Brian Christ, his brother who turns water into Coors Light, not wine. He's not quite as good as Jesus.
Where did you do this? Where did this take place?
Well, that was at one of those, those anti-soji things that people that stand on overpasses and all those people. So, and that was sort of the fun part about it, was because a lot of those people profess to be Christians. And so, me dressing up in a white passing Middle Eastern man costume, they sure got enraged and lit their hair on fire, which was that was the goal all along.
Right.
So we actually met our goal, because they started targeting me, which I love. And they didn't go after the gay and trans people and supporters and stuff. So that's what they were there for.
Yeah, I find that whole thing so hypocritical. But anyway, that's just.
Well, it's true. I mean, it's true. And that's exactly what I was trying to point out. That's the hypocrisy. If you're going to get mad at somebody dressing up as a character, because I actually love Jesus. I think Jesus is a great example of how we should all live. But a lot of Christians, not all, actually the majority don't fall into this category, but a good portion of Christians will claim to be Christian, but not follow the teachings of Jesus at all. And that's what's bothersome about it all. I actually think it's worthwhile to read the red letters in the Bible and look at what Jesus aspired to. And it wasn't riches. It wasn't getting rich, like the prosperity gospel, that they push today. To me, that's a perversion of the gospel.
And it wasn't standing out there with signs and screaming and yelling at people either.
Yeah, Matthew 6:5, right? They were judging. That's what they do. They show up and they judge other people. They say, well, this is my line. There's even gay people that show up and hate on trans, which I find really bizarre, because the next thing you know, they're going to be turning on them too.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jesus didn't do that. And Matthew 6:5 talks about not judging other people. I don't understand everything about trans issues. I'm not trans, but I also don't go out of my way to try and hate on people who have a different experience than me.
Like, I have a great nephew who is trans, and he's the same person I knew before I found out he was trans. It's the exact same person, right? Same loving person. And I just don't understand why anybody would be against something like that. Like, there's no logic to it.
Well, and then trans people were welcomed in the church, and that's Acts. In the book of Acts, they talk about the Ethiopian eunuch, and that could be interpreted as somebody who maybe is trans or non-binary. And they actually say, you can be born that way, or man can turn you that way, or you can turn yourself that way. So to me, that trans people were welcomed into the church back then, and you can't deny that. But some of these people in town will definitely deny that. They'll deny Acts. I think it's chapter 8, 26, verse 26, right in there, that whole story. It's worth reading.
We both know that people take out of the Bible what they want, or they'll misinterpret. Whether they do it on purpose or not, I don't know. But we both know they do that as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and we're all guilty of stuff like that. But it's just, to me, it's about, why are we hating on people? And that was the whole purpose behind the white passing Middle Eastern man, was because I knew it would enrage people and it would point out the hypocrisy. So, and it did.
Unbelievable. No, another thing I wanted to talk about was people on the left being too sensitive about nonsense. So first of all, describe people on the left.
Well, I would say people who identify as progressive, like, I mean, I identify as progressive too, but, I kind of alluded to it earlier, right? They can be, it can be a bit of, throwing people over the wall. So if somebody, say, has mostly progressive views, but maybe in one issue they're not quite as progressive
Right.
as others, maybe they're, I don't know, a little bit conservative leaning on justice issues or something like that. Next thing you know, they're being tossed over the wall and saying, "Hey, you're not really." And we see that in real life, like with high profile people. If you follow politics online and stuff, you'll see people considered left wing getting tossed out by people considered more left wing, and they're just overly sensitive about things, and the right can be too, but the left's biggest problem, in my opinion, is they don't fight hard enough. They don't fight hard enough. The right always fight super hard for their causes. That's why they show up in droves for the most stupidest things. Then you get important issues that progressives will claim to support, and they don't even want to show up. They just want to be nice, and maybe, I don't know, send a letter to the editor or something like that, right?
Yeah.
But to me, they need to be a lot meaner. Not meaner or nasty, I guess. I guess that's not the right word, but they need to be a little smarter and more aggressive in what they do. Because I actually really fear for Canada if we start following the US. Like, we tend to follow, you can see it with the types of wackiness out there. It's usually like it happens down in southern US and it just kind of works its way up north.
Yeah.
And politics is the same. We could end up with our own Trump. You never know, and that's not a good thing, in my opinion.
No,
but they don't fight hard enough to change that, in my opinion.
They don't speak up enough. Exactly. They don't speak up, right? Or if they do, it's just among themselves, but not where anybody else can hear them.
Yeah, and they'll get their feathers ruffled about the most minor little thing.
Yeah.
And then start splitting themselves off into smaller groups, right? And the right does it too, right? Like you say, they'll all be agreeable. We even saw it at that rally where you had kind of two factions. You had the Sikh faction of anti-Soji people in one area, and then you had these far right white type individuals on the other side, and they didn't want to intermingle at first, but they all agree on that issue. But then they start turning the fingers on each other on other issues like the Israeli conflict, the Palestinian conflict. They're starting to throw each other under the bus for that. If you don't support Israel, then you're gonna go to hell or whatever, right? Like, they'll throw themselves under the bus for things like that.
Yeah, right. It's just all so insane, like when I listen to people and I hear what they have to say, and like you said, they're hating, I just don't get it. I don't think I'll ever get it, because how do you get in somebody's mind who thinks that way, right? Or following somebody, and somebody who, like Trump is a prime example of the people that follow him, that support him, no matter what he says and what he does. How do you understand something like that?
Yeah, well, they'll find one issue that they really, really strongly agree with him on or believe him on. Like, maybe they think he's the best for the economy and they're down on their luck and they don't have a job and no great income, and then they'll ignore everything else.
Well, that's dangerous, isn't it? Now there's something else you did. You wrote a letter. It was a letter to the Progress, was it?
Yeah. I wrote that. It was in, I don't know, it was in the print edition, but it was on the digital edition anyway, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, that was on January 18th. It went out, right? And you want to talk about what was in the letter?
Yeah, so it's all related. Like, we're talking about public safety issues here, and I'd heard the mayor, there was well, first of all, he was one of those ones who lit his hair on fire about me dressing up as a white passing Middle Eastern man. But second of all, he was on the radio talking about a judicial decision that was made around the use of drugs in parks. And I guess there had been a potential law coming forward that would it would make it against the law for people to be openly using drugs in parks. And the drugs themselves are decriminalized, but using it in the park would be the crime. And you know, it was you can debate that whole thing.
Yeah.
That's a totally separate issue. But he went on the radio, I think, and started popping off about how horrible it is. And you know, and to me, you shouldn't, as a politician, be undermining the justice system by, you know, criticizing stuff that you have no control over. So that was really the gist of the letter, because I happen to know that they really push the consumption of alcohol in parks in this town. Every summer they have a pilot project out at the Vetter River where you're allowed to just bring alcohol or whatever. And yeah, we don't see too many problems from that, but you will get people going there and drinking and then driving away, you know, in their vehicle. And to me, that's a risk we don't need to take with alcohol, because alcohol is probably one of the most destructive drugs out there. It's illegal, but we all know it's very destructive. It destroys families. It leads to violence. It leads to very poor decisions, you know, like drinking and driving and things like that.
For sure.
But yet we encourage that. So to me, it was hypocritical for him to say that. And also hypocritical that, and he knows this policy J10 and J11, I think Amber Price even said something about it on social media. These policies that they enacted just to keep the pride flag from being flown. But it also impacts other groups now that can't, you know, express themselves with a flag or whatever. But the bigger issue is the fact that they rent city venues to groups that actually target our citizens. So if you look at Action for Canada's website, for example, I think they have about 6 or 7 issues, and they're all basically just to get you into a rage and get you mad about something and give them money. But there's nothing positive that they bring to the community. They're against cell phone towers. They think they cause cancer. They're against, you know, they think COVID was a ruse. They're anti-Soji. They're anti-Muslim. They're, you know, so it's all about everything they hate. If you go on their webpage, we hate this, we hate that, we hate that. And to me, we shouldn't be renting to groups like that, because they don't build community. They destroy community. So that was the gist of the letter. And that's kind of related to the whole Middle Eastern man stuff back in October.
Right. Did you get any feedback about that letter?
Oh yeah, like lots of people. Yeah, lots of people were like, hey, that was really well said, and you know, very succinct and stuff. And I could have gone on and on, because I mean, he went on the radio to complain about rainbow chalk. Like, who does that? Like, it's chalk, it washes away in the water. But he felt, he was so mad about it, he had to go on some local radio station and shoot his mouth off about it. And I just think he should be focused on things he can control.
Yeah.
And not worry about me and what I'm dressing up as, or you know, rainbow chalk on the sidewalk or whatever.
Yeah, I think I hear your point. You know, I think it would be more concerned about focusing on what's harmful. If you're going to be focused on something that's negative, something that's going to harm people, right?
Yeah.
Because however you dressed up, who did it harm? Did it harm?
It didn't harm anybody, other than I upset a few people. One thing I would do if I was to go back and do it again, I wouldn't swear as much, because it upset my parents.
Oh.
but that was just a strategy to try and make it so people wouldn't put it online, but they put it online anyway. I didn't care. But copyrighted music, I think, is the way to
And the same thing with the chalk.
go next time. So maybe the Middle Eastern man will be walking with a yeah. So
rainbow chalk. Who does that hurt?
it doesn't hurt anybody. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
And it washes away.
Yeah, right. I don't quite, you know, I don't understand. Again, you know, I'll say this over and over again. I just don't get it. I don't understand people not accepting other people. If you're an adult loving another adult or whatever, wanting to love yourself or any of those things, you know, as long as it's positive and you're not hurting anybody, leave them alone. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, just leave them alone.
Yeah. Now I know this group there, this whatever they're called. Like one of the things that I was told, and I don't know, you might know better more than me, that they're concerned about what the children are being taught in school. The lower kids, right? I have to say this though, they support a man who wanted access to the school children. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, there's a lot of that type of sort of hypocrisy, I guess, is the only way you can really describe it, right? So
Right.
I've said it before, and I say it all the time, is statistically speaking, because I work in a prison, or I used to, I don't anymore, but I got trained to run a sex offender program years ago, and it was the community-based one for federal inmates coming out. And I could tell you just anecdotally that the bulk of the clients in there were people who were cisgender white guys that identified as Christian. They were either deacons in the church, or some sort of elder,
Yeah.
or a Sunday school teacher, or pastor, or there were so many of those on a per capita basis. It was just like, wow, like, is there something going on here? And of course, we all know the story of residential schools. That's
Oh, yeah.
actually, this is Stony Mountain Prison here, but underneath it is the residential school.
Ah, okay.
Right. And they look the same, and they had the same principles. Well, who was doing the molesting there? It wasn't teachers or
Mm.
trustees, it was the church, right? I'm not about to go and stand at a church with a sign, you know, saying that, but that's where it is, and that's where we need to wake up. And if we're going to change things, we need to educate people in an appropriate way. We need to educate children about their bodies and who has a right to touch them and not touch them, and those type of things. And then you inoculate your children against these predators. It's when they're not told these things that they become a little more vulnerable, in my opinion.
See, that's another good, really, really good point, because these people, they're out there protesting, whatever. Are they ever at the churches protesting?
No, no, they're attending them
Yeah.
and turning a blind eye to it at the
Yeah.
very least. So,
Yeah, oh my gosh. Yeah.
but the right appropriate type of education is important. And so I can understand a parent's concern, because everybody's version of that might be a little bit different. There might be a different line. Like, my mom was very conservative. That's the way we grew up. We grew up, we're Christian and evangelical, going to church, and I wasn't even allowed to be in the Christmas concert because they used a secular song, Jingle Bell Rock, in grade 2, and I wasn't allowed to be a part of that. So that was my parents' right to decide that, but it really made me feel ostracized and awkward and stuff. And I didn't get that education about my body growing up. It just basically came in the form of a government produced little handbook that was slid into my bookcase one day in like grade 7. And I was like, oh, what's this? And that's where I learned about what my body was doing, because of course my body was changing around that time.
Well, you got more than I got, because in my time, we didn't even have anything like that. Again, Catholic school, everything, your body was sinful, even to touch yourself, right? All of those things were sin. Sex before marriage was a sin. So we didn't learn about our bodies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And the schools were run by nuns, So with their hypocritical views, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if I was if I was growing up today, or if I was a parent today with a child that was younger, and I didn't like what they were teaching in the public schools, I would simply try and address it in the appropriate way, I guess, as a parent,
Yes.
maybe through trustees or whatever. But also I would say, okay, this isn't going to work for us. I'm going to look for other options. You've got homeschooling, you've got religious schools,
Yeah.
and you've got other private schools, and you've got even just various different public schools can be different from school to school. So
Sure.
anyway, lots of options, but
Right, yeah. And it's like learning the truth and learning the like, again, I've been told that this group doesn't want to sit down and listen to anybody. They don't want to have discussions where that one side not yelling at the other side, So what's the point? What do they hope to gain?
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. You should have them on one day. Right?
That would be interesting.
Yeah. You could have that reporter from the Rebel or whatever that chases people around and hides around corners.
I don't know who that is.
Have them on. Yeah, I don't know who it is either. She was yelling something about Soji 19 the last time I saw her, and I was like, what is that?
Right.
Some new conspiracy theory, I guess.
Oh my gosh. Do you think that with COVID, things like with COVID happening, people being stuck at home, and that things got a little bit worse?
Yes, absolutely. And as well as I do, Nancy, how algorithms work. You're on your computer and you're looking at certain things, and all of a sudden you start to be presented options that support that. And we all have to be a little more careful, I think. And I'm doing it as much as possible these days, is trying to get different opposing views into my feed, because I don't want to be watching the same thing all the time. So I'll watch like PBS, and then I'll go and I'll even watch a little bit of Fox here and there to hear how they spin the same story that I saw on PBS in long form. Everything right now is designed in short form for these quick hits, and so they want to get you, hooked in. So they'll start with these sensationalistic headlines, and then you click on it, and all of a sudden now you're getting stuff in your feed that's confirmation bias. So we're all guilty of it, and that's where we need to, it's interesting now that we're starting to see Netflix and Prime start to add commercials in.
Yeah.
Now they're deciding what they want us to see commercial wise, and it might adjust your taste. And I think during COVID, we all got stuck on the internet, and people went down some rabbit holes that were pretty dangerous. And I'm not talking about one side or the other, like,
no, just
probably both.
Yeah.
And it's strange. Like, if you have a conversation with me about something, a product I don't buy, my phone will pick it up. Next thing you know, I'm getting ads for that product.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, we've got to really think long and hard about what we allow to influence us,
right?
Media wise.
I totally agree. We talk about that with my sisters and everything. It's so weird. You're sitting somewhere in a restaurant and talking about something, and next thing you get a notice about, like you say, a product that we might have discussed. It's like, who's this? Who's where's this being picked up on our cell phones? I guess. Right?
Yeah, and then it lends credence to like the 5G stuff that people talk about, and conspiracy theories that way, because they are rooted in a little bit of truth sometimes. And we really do need to think about how we go about consuming media. If we're only going to decide for ourselves what we want to watch, we're more inclined to only watch stuff that fits our narrative.
True.
But in the old days, you had 12 channels on your TV, and you may not even got all of them. Like if you lived in a small town like me, so you had, CTV, global, I guess, whatever it is now. Like it was BCTV back then, and CBC and CTV, and that was it. So you got these. They were kind of similar opinions, but some leaned a little bit this way and that way, and even the reporter could make a difference in terms of how they frame the story.
Sure.
We see that with that Rebel. It's not even really a newspaper; it's just a rag, but another rage rag, as I call them. But you see the way they frame their stories are always framed in a certain way, and it's concerning, because that's what I think divides us. It starts to pit us against each other.
Absolutely. One of the things, we didn't see it this past year, but close to Christmas time every year, what would happen on Facebook would come in, and it's like, in Canada, we say Merry Christmas or whatever. And I put on last time that happened, I said, look, don't fall into that. That is just somebody putting those things out to create issues between us. Nobody's telling anybody that they can't say Merry Christmas. If you're a business and you tell your employees they can't say it, that has nothing to do with the public going in there and saying, oh, Merry Christmas, right? Yeah. So people get caught up in those type of things.
Yeah, that's one of those things I said the left gets too sensitive about.
Yeah. Yeah, nobody's stopping it. Somebody said to me, we're Canadians, we say Merry Christmas. That's a Christian thing. There are many who are non-Christians who live here, who are good people.
I like it when somebody says Happy Kwanzaa to me, and so I take all those kind of greetings, any well-wishing. I don't care what the background or tradition is on it. I appreciate it. I wouldn't identify as a religious, and if somebody said I was going to pray for you, I'd be like, yeah, thanks, man.
Do your thing.
Yeah, go for it.
Do your thing. So, anyway, we're going to end it there, Peter. It's always interesting talking to you. I really enjoyed this. This was really great.
Yeah, I have a good time too.
Thank you.
It's fun.
All right, good. Stay on camera there, Peter. So everybody, you've been listening to Peter Lang. And if you're one of those activists, you want to be on the show, contact me. I don't turn anybody away. I really don't, So anyway, take care, everybody, and peace out.
See ya.
I can't find the off button. Oh my God.
A sense of community, Chilliwack's a place to be. A sense of community where you're free. Rolling through the mountains, rolling through the valley, rolling through paradise with me. It's multicultural, you're sure to see it all. Chilliwack's the place to be, you'll see. Come party in the park, go dancing after dark. Chilliwack's the place to be, you'll see.